because you don't need to be an expert in the Vedas and everything to be a spiritual person. And when people ask, why do you worship a stone? I tell them, no, we do a prana pratishtha.
Like when the tsunami came, thousands of years old temples also came out.
You know what, I don't believe in the concept of. You will believe in God after some time, that is for sure. Some kind of external force which is preventing a Ganesh Murti being installed, it broke into two.
People should go and visit and feel the energy and the vibration over here.
So today's kids are not learning, they are more busy on their phones, they're busy. Now today we put our grandmothers in old age homes, so we don't have grandmothers anymore to tell us stories. Each temple has its own story, each mosque has its own story, and if you disconnect from these cultural icons, I think we're losing our soul as an Indian.
Welcome to Bay Leaves, a soulful conversation with Suresh Kochattil. Completed his graduation at Osmania University and mastered hotel management in Chennai. In 1986, he joined ITC Welcome Group Banjara. Later, he ventured to Bangalore with the Taj Group before joining the Times of India Group in 1989. For over 17 years, he wore various hats at TOI, from marketing to creative cell to journalism. His passion for his work led him to his current role as the CEO of Bharat Today, a news channel in Hyderabad. He is quite the social media sensation with a dedicated following and is considered a prominent influencer. Mr. Kochattil also frequently participates in TV debates. It's my pleasure to host such a remarkable individual at the first episode of the Soulful Conversation podcast.
Welcome, sir. Welcome to Bay Leaves. So, as we had a wider discussion about spirituality, so you have taken lots of interviews with many people around India and around the globe, and with all the senior people in the industry. So, let's start with what is spirituality as per you?
See, when you look at from an Indian context, I'm not speaking from a universal context. When you're speaking from an Indian context, spirituality for us is a part of our daily life. From the time we get up in the morning, we chant certain things, we chant certain slokas. And then, some people in the morning itself, they go to the temple. Many of us, because of our daily lives, we cannot make it. Then the various contexts when you drive along, when you see a temple, when you see any religious person, when you see any religious object, the various things that come out in spirituality. Spirituality for me is a self-fulfillment, that I'm proud to be a Bharatiya. That I think is the most important thing, because you don't need to be an expert in the Vedas and everything to be a spiritual person. The spiritual person is one who seeks solace, one who seeks more solutions. Okay, because none of us are experts, none of us are complete. We all seek questions. We have questions for everything. Why does this happen? Why does this happen? Why does this happen? And then you try and seek solutions. And for me, the spirituality aspects comes from that, because that is finally what makes a human being complete.
Amazing. So I do have followed questions. As you have conducted lots of podcasts on temples, please share your thoughts on.
Well, I started long before the podcast culture started. Every temple that I go to, and those times there were not much of videos, the mobile phones were not capable of taking videos. So every time I go to a temple, be it the Tirunelli temple in that huge area near Brahmagiri Hills, just at the border of Karnataka and Kerala, Wayanad district, or it can be the Vadakunathan temple in my hometown in Thrissur, Kerala, which is one of the largest temple complexes in India. I'm always very inquisitive about what it is. So I write. I'm being a journalist from 3 decades now. I used to write.
Yeah.
Now that videos have come into prominence, there are a lot of people who do this as a part of the daily thing. There are people who do vlogs. There are people who write about temples, people who speak about temples, and of course, people who show videos about temples. That's a great thing to do, because this is a heritage. And when I speak about a temple, for example, I keep speaking about this temple called Kudal Manikyam Kshetram, which is near my house in Karvanur village in Kerala, in Thrissur district. So it's 6 kilometers from my house. It's only Bharata temple in India. Of course, there are many of them, but in the scale and size of that temple, it's one of the biggest. And no other god's murti is established inside the temple because it is not allowed. That something was happening. There's some kind of external force which is preventing a Ganesh murti being installed. It broke into two. The tulsi plant doesn't grow inside that temple. Why? That is a super force which you cannot explain. And when you say, when I go to each temple, when I write about it, and I'm not that a frequent traveler because of my regular work, I cannot travel much. But wherever I go, the first thing I do is I do my pradakshanam, I do my thing, then I kind of go to the priest, I sit with him or her, and ask them, what is it unique about this temple? Tell me something. And then they are also surprised because people usually come to them for something else. They come to them for the prasad or they come to them for seeking the blessing. But here is one guy who's coming and asking, tell me about why this temple was set up. When was it set up? What is so special about this temple? Why is this particular kind of puja done here? So those questions will come into it. And one of my friends, Surendranath Bopparaju, who's also from Hyderabad, he's written a beautiful book called Templexity. It has about amazing 1,000 odd pictures, and it stretches for temples from Cambodia to Sri Lanka. I wish I was as lucky as him, either in terms of money or in terms of the time, that he spent 10 years researching on these temples before actually traveling and shooting the entire thing on. Today, that book Templexity is available on Amazon, and each time I look at it, each time I read one paragraph of it or one page of it, I'm kind of fascinated that our ancestors were so skilled. We are nothing. They didn't have a vernier caliper. They didn't have measurement. They didn't have a telescope. They didn't have anything to measure any distance. But they got it all right. Padmanabha Swami temple could get an equinox correctly on that date through the Gopurams. How? Yes. How did they do it? How did they, get the Shivalingas right in the right shape, size, everything? How did they make stone rings that you can see in some temples in Kanchipuram and all this place? So each place I go, I was in Kanchipuram about 6 months ago. I had the second visit of mine. But each time I go there, I see something different. Because that's a place which has more than 108 temples. So what is it that draws us to that place? What is it that draws you to, the northeast? There are many temples that say. There are up north also the Badrinath, Kedarnath and all the Chardhams. What is it that draws you to Guruvayur? What is it that draws you to Madurai? Okay. These are our cultural icons. And if you disconnect from these cultural icons, I think we're losing our soul as an Indian. I think that Bharatiya of us, that Indianness in us, that being a proud Bharatiya is mainly due to the fact that our temples were custodians of our culture.
Correct.
There's the Brahmins there who used to do the puja. There were the Vaisyas who used to take care of the accounts. There were the Kshatriyas who used to go fight in an enemy territory and get the wealth so that the temple could be maintained. So the temple is a confluence of cultures and people. And I think that part of it fascinates me even now. And I don't think I can even touch it anywhere where I can claim that I did it. And when I was in Times of India, long back, that government of that day had commissioned a thing called Temples of Andhra Pradesh. Of course, that never saw the light of the day later because of the change in government. But we worked on some 170 odd temples in Andhra Pradesh and now what is now called Telangana also. So it is a beautiful way of telling our next generation, look, this is what our ancestors were all about.
Agree with you. Like, what do you think? What is the difference between the religious tourism and spiritual tourism?
Well, there's a very thin line between these two. Okay. One seeks the other. When you say religious tourism, it is mostly to do with the fact that, which I also don't like, is it is associated with luxury. People don't go to a temple town. For example, you can take Kashi or you can take Ujjain.
Yes.
The first thing that is coming up is lots of 5-star hotels around, a lot of huge restaurants around. So the most obvious question I ask myself, yes, you need good hotels to stay. There's no doubt about it. You need good restaurants to eat. But is that what you're going for? Is that what you're going for? Are you going to seek the spirituality there, or are you going to just go as a tourist? They're two different things. They're two different things, two distinct things. But everybody thinks that I'm here for a spiritual tourism. That's what they think, but actually it can be religious tourism. And nothing wrong with that. A religious tourism for a place like Kashi has generated huge amounts of money ever since the Kashi Vishwanath Dham was renovated and all that. So every place, now Ujjain, Mahakal, the same thing happening there also. So each time there is a cultural icon being revived, and that is what Rajmata Ahilyabai Holkar did. She rejuvenated those temples. And I think it's our thing, I wouldn't mind anybody as long as they don't go and make it a party place. You're not going to go there and play, watch TV or watch kind of go to a discotheque or anything in Temple Town. No, no, that's not what you're going for. You're going to see the huge culture of it. And today's generation, that's the biggest problem I'm foreseeing. Today's Instagram generation doesn't have time. They don't have the inclination. You try to tell them about temple, they'll switch off after the first 30 seconds. How do you get them interested to look at a temple? Because our generation is still okay, but the next generation and the generation after that, how do you keep them hooked to our culture? There must be something in it which we should show it to them, saying that this is what it's. This is what it is all about. So the stories need to be told. And that is where we are failing, because look, there's so much of Mahabharata or Vedas or Upanishads that you can go through, or even Ramayana for that matter. Because not everybody is into it. Or Gayatri Mantra in the morning, it's so soothing. Or Venkateshwara Suprabhadam. But how many of today's generation would be interested in all this? That is what is worrying me. That is the reason why I keep writing about temples. I keep talking about temples wherever I go in my guest lectures and other subjects, but I just bring in one temple or a couple of temples into that guest lecture just to get the students interested, thinking about it and saying, yeah, wow, we should go for this. We should go and see this. So instead of going to Switzerland or a Ooty or going to Shimla, I'm not saying you should not go there. You should go there. But there is also that fact that parents need to take the children to our cultural icons. So it can be a Kashi, it can be a Badrinath, it can be a Kedarnath, it can be a Chardham, or it can be anywhere, the Kamakya temple. You can go anywhere, or for that matter, the Puri Jagannath temple, the Khajuraho's. There's so much to see in this country. I'm telling you, a lifetime you can't even scratch it, the top of it. You can hardly see maybe 3 or 4% of what Bharat is all about in a lifetime, because it requires numerous lifetimes to cover this country. And I think that is the most important thing.
Absolutely, Gary. I agree with your point. And I also feel like people should go and visit and feel the energy and the vibration over there.
Exactly. Because quite often I'm asked, of course, this comes out beautifully, that movie Kerala Story, where one of the girls who portrayed was about to get converted, tells her parents, look, you didn't teach me about my religion. If somebody is mocking Lord Ganesha, which other girl, a Muslim girl does, there's no way this kid could defend that story, because she didn't know what it was. That is where we are coming, because we had the grandmother's generation where grandmothers used to tell us stories in the night. Now today we have put our grandmothers in old age homes, so we don't have grandmothers anymore to tell us stories. The generation is gone, the families have become more nuclear. So today's kids are not learning. They are more busy on their phones, they're busy on their laptop, they're busy with their homework. They don't have time for all this. So we are actually depriving the next generation of the beautiful culture that our country has. How many kids have gone to the Jewish synagogue? I'm not saying, it's not even a Hindu temple, by the way. It's like a Jewish synagogue in Kochi. Where do you know the first mosque in India was set up? It was the Charan Juma Masjid, which is about 16 kilometers from my place in Thrissur district of Kerala.
I think all
the first church was built there. I'm not saying that it is just Hinduism. It goes beyond it, because we are a country which imbibed all cultures. The Zoroastrians came, they settled down, they built the 5 temples, we welcome them. The Jews fled, and they say even now, the Jews tell that they were the only country which welcomed them with open arms was India, or Bharat, as we call it. So there we were a culture that would get everybody in. That is the greatness of Hinduism. And when people ask, why do you worship a stone? I tell them, no, we do a prana pratishtha. We pour a life into it. You get any of your meters to check the efficacy of it, you can see how it behaves, how those meters behave, how those devices behave when you go anywhere near a pratishtha. That is the most important thing. And I think each stone in each of our temples tells a story.
Yeah.
And that story needs to be told.
How can spiritual tourism be a force for positive change in the world?
That's an excellent question. We have people who come from different countries to India. Now, would you say a trip to Ajanta and Ellora would constitute a religious tourism or a spiritual tourism? Yes, there is the Kailash temple there. Okay, there are the Jyotirlingas there around that place.
Yes.
So, yes, but they also see the Buddhist part of it. Well and good. But as you asked, where is it? It's coming in from. I think there has to be a more kind of educative. Government has to take a lot of lead in that. The private sector has to take. Schools have to take. Colleges have to take. You can always, in Hyderabad, I keep telling this: kids going to a park or a cinema or a mall or a film city. Yes, please go. I'm not saying don't go, but did you ever visit a temple in Hyderabad which dates back centuries? No. They don't know where it is, where the Kishan Bagh temple or anything for that matter. So this is where I'm a bit angry, and at the same time, I think there is a possibility that we as a nation are kind of now rediscovering ourselves, especially in the last 9.5 years. That we have seen there have been a revival of the Hindu consciousness, I would say more of Bharat's consciousness, where we are bringing forth cultural icons which were lost earlier. We lost Dwarka, it disappeared, but it's still there somewhere around. We lost a lot of our temple architecture. We lost a lot of our temples. If you go to Hampi, I feel sad sometimes when I go to Hampi. What could have been majestic? The temple still stands there, the Virupaksha temple. Beyond it, what? Those magnificent palaces that would have been standing there is all gone, because we were a civilization that has been subjected to ravages by various people who came across from different parts of the world. Be it the Mughals, be it the British, be it the Portuguese, everybody, be it the Afghans, everybody came down and had a ball in our country. And we lost a lot of it, but we are recovering it now, thankfully. And that is the most important thing.
Yeah. So also just want to adding to your point, I also heard like when the tsunami came and the ocean water, when it went back, thousands of years old temples also came out of those places.
It also happened that, there's a port called Kranganur where I was talking about this mosque, first mosque in Southeast Asia, or first mosque outside Mecca and Medina, and the first church and the first synagogue was built at a place called Kranganur. It was then called Kranganur by the Britishers. It's actually now called Kodungalur in Thrissur district of Kerala. It's a seaport. It is nothing now. There's no seaport at all there, right? But at one time, it was one of the biggest seaports in India. And some tsunami came in, I think, the 1800. That's what my grandmother told me, and the entire port got destroyed. And later on, when the recent tsunami came about a decade ago, the entire ships and the boats that were sunk all came out. Look at the discovery. I mean, that is how we find out that our civilization existed. There are temples, like for example, the Kanipakam temple. How do you explain an idol, a murti that grows every year? How do you explain the fact that judicial officers take an oath that is taken in front of the Kanipakam Ganapati as true? I mean, there are belief systems in India. There are some things which we cannot explain why it happens. We just got to understand, imbibe it, and take it as it is. We have no right to ask questions.
So I'll go ahead with the spiritual tourism has raised post-pandemic. How do you see what audience are looking towards to get more experience or knowledge?
I think it's a young audience, if you ask me. Of course, there are elders, like people like me who, typically when you're at the end of your life cycle, you say, Kashi jana hai. So that was like kind of having a defeatist attitude, say, I'm going to Kashi. Maybe I'll pass away there, I'll get a path to the heaven. Well, I think if you ask me, there are two generations. One is, of course, as I spoke about, the older generation, which, of course, would like to travel after they achieve a certain time in life when they want to go, when they're retired. Then there is a young generation. Okay, I don't blame them. If they want to go to a resort, if they want to go to a hill station, so be it. But I think if we market it properly, and Indian Railways is doing a very good job, IRCTC is doing, they're developing a lot of packages from different cities where they take you on a conducted tour, because all the hassles of trying to find a hotel room, taxi, all that is taken care of. And you have somebody with you to ensure all the time that you're secure. I think that is what is needed, but that needs to be marketed well.
Correct.
We have so many film stars with us who can easily market these things, saying you should go. This Amitabh Bachchan used to promote Gujarat at one time, saying Aayo Kabhi Gujarat mein. So we should say Aayo Kabhi, Somnath temple dekhna. That is there in that ad actually. But how do you tell other places? How do you talk about a Khajuraho? How do you explain a Biradeshwara temple to a youngster? How did that stone reach on top of the temple? Everybody questions these things. So I'll ask, even engineering students, for example, they go to some Okay, you got to go to factories on your what do you call it, college visits, whatever you call it. You need to go there, But at the same time, go and look at our masterpieces. How did they slot stones into stones and build a temple without any limestone or anything for that was used in that? How did they achieve perfection of scale in that corridor in Rameshwaram? How did they do it? I mean, there's no explanation for it. Not even 1 inch is out of place. It's perfect symmetry. So this is what I think the next generation should look at. And if they're sold this properly, if they're marketed to them properly, and they have a lot of disposable income, by the way. Today's youngsters don't believe in the concept of saving money. They want to party as if there's no world tomorrow. So be it. So market it properly. Give them good accommodation. Give them good guides to go around. Give them good food to be had. And they will definitely like to go and visit. But we need to protect our places. I remember speaking to KK Mohammadji, a veteran in this field, about the restoration of temples at Bateshwar. Now, look at that man's passion. Even though he's retired, he still has the passion to restore temples. And quite often people would ask me, what's a Muslim doing in restoring temples? He himself has answered that question. He said, मैं प्रायश्चित कर रहा हूँ मेरे जो पूर्वजों ने जो सत्यानाश किया था देश का मंदिरों का मैं उसका प्रायश्चित कर रहा हूँ. There are people like that, like Mr. Mohammed. And then, of course, we don't appreciate our arts and architecture for that matter. And I think everything needs. So even if you talk about, the Ranakpur temple in the middle of nowhere between Jodhpur and Udaipur, marvelous. None of the 1,400 pillars are alike, marble pillars. That's an amazing thing. We should go there. It's not that you need to be religious to go to a place. Some people say, oh, you know what, I'm not really, I don't believe in the concept of God. So be it. You're free to do that. You will believe in God after some time. That is for sure. Okay. When you are faced with a crisis, you will definitely believe in God. Till then, you won't believe it, the existence of God. So we should understand, we should make next generation aware, because India is a land where 65% of the population is below the age of 35. And that's a huge number we are talking of for a nation of 140 crore people. We should take them, market it properly. There's so many hospitality institutions around the country. They can take up this job in a very good way. Charge a premium, doesn't matter, but take people and show them what our temples are all about. And I think on part of government, there is a lot to be done. I'm not really a fan of the Archaeological Survey of India because they've messed up some places. For example, the restoration in Hampi was messed up. Okay. If you look at it, the kind of work that went trying to get the authenticity, they never could get it right. Okay, there may be different reasons. The government works like that. The government department works on tenders. So when you call a tender, which is why those 2,000-year-old buildings still stand, whereas a 20-year-old building that was built by a contractor will develop a crack. So this is the difference. So I think the Archaeological Survey, the government of India, needs to ensure cleanliness, needs to ensure good facilities around like restrooms and other things, good restaurants, as I said, and then ensure that people come there. We cannot have people coming to places which are dirty, which are unclean. No, it's not. I was very impressed with the Mamallapuram Shore Temple when I went recently. I've been there umpteen number of times when I was studying in Chennai. And I went even about 5-6 years ago. But when I went recently, marvelous change. I think it happened after President Xi and President Modi met in Mamallapuram. That place has been developed like anything. Okay. So how do you explain that? And I think if you look at it, I would again go back to Dr. K.K. Mohammed and the way he set up this children's museum in Delhi near the Seri Fort Auditorium. Brilliant. He brought together a lot of artifacts, made it there. He didn't bring it but there is Mahabalipuram, there is Ellora, there is other parts of the country, all for children to see it in a place like Delhi. You don't need to go everywhere. You can see it there and then decide, okay, I want to go there. So I would request all schools, take your children for the annual vacation or whatever you want to call it, outing, but take them to a place where they would appreciate the architecture of it. I would not say go and pray there. Okay, that's up to you to decide whether you want to pray or not to pray, but appreciate the engineering skills, the architectural skills, and the ingenuity of that generation. That is very important.
Correct. So I would request our audience to definitely, who are there in Delhi or planning to go to Delhi, please do visit.
Yeah, this children's museum is just near the parking area of Seri Fort Auditorium. Please go and see that. It's maintained by the Archaeological Survey of India. And, take a child there and show them that this is what it's all about. I mean, each stone has a story. And in India, they say, each stone tells a story. And we need to tell them that story. But for that, first, you need to be aware of what it is. You need to read, you need to understand, you need to imbibe all that information.
As per your interviews and personal experience, would you like to share some experiences and stories of any religious place which you have highly recommended to our audience to visit or experience?
Well, one of the places which I already spoke to you was about the Vadakkunnathan temple in Thrissur in Kerala. I'm not saying because I'm from there. I'm just saying because possibly after Angkor Wat, if you see a temple of scale and size, it's Vadakkunnathan. It's huge. The parikrama itself will take you a couple of kilometers or 3 kilometers to go around. The Kerala temples have certain rules and regulations, which of course you can't wear a shirt or anything, and the upper torso has to be clean. But more importantly is the fact that that temple has certain scientific temperaments built into it. It's very old temple, goes back to days of Lord Parashuram. Then there are other temples also, which one of the unique temples which I found was a temple of Parashurama himself in Trivandrum at a place called Tiruvallam. When I was working there in Trivandrum, I had gone there and visited that temple. It's maintained by the Archaeological Survey of India, by the way, which is very unique. A temple that where prayers still go on, where priests still conduct prayers, is maintained by the Archaeological Survey. It's supposed to be the only temple for Lord Parashurama. The third temple, of course, I talked about earlier was the Tirunelli temple in the Wayanad district in the Brahmagiri Hills. It's right up there. I don't know, when I spoke to the priest, they said it's 3,000 years old. And there are numerous such temples. I think each temple, it's like asking a mother, which is your favorite baby among 2 of them or 3 of them. It's not possible. But I would recommend that each temple has its. I'm not an expert in temples, by the way. I go to each temple, I learn each time I go there. But the idea is also to tell people that, there is this thing like this. There is this story behind it. There is this heritage behind it. Then go and enjoy that heritage. Go and enjoy that moment of solitude. And that is extremely important. Of course, Tirumala has been always my favorite, but not because of the crowds that are out there. I would like to trek from Alipiri onto the top of the hill. I only wish the crowds was less, but not possible in a place like Tirumala. I actually liked a lot of temples in Kerala. I'm very, very, very selfish about it. But I think Belur and Halibad in Karnataka again are my favorites. And that I think the architecture there is simply amazing kind of architecture out there. The Kalasha temple always remains my favorite for sheer engineering skills. How did they carve out a temple from top of the hill to the bottom on a hill? I mean, it's how do you do it? I have no explanation. I haven't heard any architect tell me how is it done. So there are many temples like that, but each one has its own specialization. So these are some of the few. I must have missed a lot of them, but I guess one can always discover it as one goes along.
Yeah, definitely. Can you? This is my last question to you. Can you speak about the importance of pilgrimage in various traditions and how it has influenced culture for our country?
When you say various religions, you mean cross religions? Or
cross religion.
Yeah, I give an example of many religions. For example, Kerala is very rich in Christianity. Christianity came to Kerala before it went to Europe.
Okay.
Islam also came to Kerala before it went to any other parts of Asia. The Cheranjuma Masjid being an example of it. There are many such beautiful mosques. There are many such beautiful churches that are still there. And of course, temples, which is my eternal favorite. But I think an architecture, for that matter, even Kerala at one time, for many of people who not realized, it was a place where a lot of Jain culture was there. Jainism was one of the major religions in Kerala at one point in time. There's many temples still there, which stood the ravages of Tipu Sultan and his father Hyder Ali. So we need to understand that each temple has its own story, each mosque has its own story, each church has its own story, each the Pasi Fire Temple has its own story to tell, or for that matter, Jain temples. Each one has it, Palitana or whatever you want to call it. Everyone, everywhere, ultimately, I think it's all about seeking solace. Gods, they say, come in different shapes and sizes, but finally, the path is one where you finally end up. And that is the most important thing. I think Hinduism, with 33,000 gods, as we call it, I think that pantheon of gods is very important for us because we are able to bring that entire pantheon of gods under one umbrella, which is the Sanatana Dharma. And that I think is the most important.
Thank you, sir, for motivating us and for the younger audience and giving them the insight.
No, I think you are doing a fabulous job, Rahul. But the more I speak to you about Shakti Peeths and other places that you're traveling, I'm sure one day I'll help him put together all these Shakti Peeths into a video, proper videos of different formats, and circulate so that the generations which are not even, I'm also not aware, I'm learning each time from him when he talks about this. I said, wow, does a place like this exist? I only wish that I had lots of money and had lots of time to go around visiting temples, the Shakti Peeths, and that. And for example, just to chronicle it for people, just to write it down, blog it, or make videos and circulate to people. I think that is what we need to do. All of us need to do that. It is not one Suresh or one Rahul who can do it. A lot of others who can do it.
Thank you, sir, for motivating us, and we'll try to bring more number of videos, such videos, which encourage youngsters and bring audience from across the world and to explore our country. What do you say, sir?
Yes, surely we should do that. Every country markets itself. You look at Paris, the way it markets itself. Look at Vatican for the way it markets. It's smallest state, possibly smallest country in the world, but it gets more visitors than any other country would. And similar with other places also. So you have different things. I mean, you look at the French, the way they mark the various churches they have there. Why not we? We should, because we are, after all, an incredible India, as the advertising slogan goes, or even my state slogan, which goes, even though I'm based out of Hyderabad, but that God's own country line, which is brilliant line that came out. Amitabh Kanji was supposed to be the brain behind it. But I think that God's own country it's a brilliant line. It was, after all, Parashurama who created Kerala by throwing an axe from Gokarna, and that's how that land was created. So it is God's own country.
Yeah.
So I think not just Kerala, I think entire India is God's own country.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.